All right, welcome to your final explainer briefing. Look, if you're sitting here with us today, you haven't just been invited to another meeting, right? You've actually been tapped for a highly specialized, absolutely critical role in an upcoming massive-scale disaster simulation. I'm going to be walking you through the absolute essentials of your deployment. Just think of me as your veteran mentor, and I'm here to prepare you, the rookie, for exactly what's to come. You are officially stepping into the 2026 Beacon exercise. Now, Beacon stands for Building Emergency Area Communications Operations and Networks. It's a highly specialized communications systems exercise. And your specific role? You're going to be a controller. Honestly, you're the scaffolding that holds this entire simulation together. We need to get you calibrated, focused, and totally ready for deployment. So grab that notebook, pay close attention, and let's get you up to speed.
Okay, I really want you to think about the sheer scale of the nightmare we're simulating here. We are not just practicing for a minor power outage. I want you to mentally place yourself right in the middle of this scenario. A magnitude 8.8 earthquake has just ruptured along the San Andreas Fault. Just think about the massive energy release of an 8.8. The result is significant infrastructure damage and widespread devastation cascading through all these coastal California communities. Initial damage estimates, or IDEs as we call them, are rolling in, and let me tell you, the picture they paint is incredibly grim. They're indicating that the very backbone of our modern society is completely broken. Communication systems are severely impacted. Cell phone networks, down. Text messaging, failing. Internet access, totally gone. When you step out into the field as a controller, you really need to feel the heavy weight of this scenario. The players you'll be observing are going to be operating completely in the dark, stripped of all those digital tools they rely on every single day.
Now, while the disaster itself is statewide, your specific operational footprint is highly localized. Specifically, you're looking at the Humboldt County Sheriff Office of Emergency Services. So you're going to want to mark your calendars and definitely set your alarms. Operations are officially locked in for Thursday, April 30th. You are going to be on the clock from 0900 to 1700 Pacific Daylight Time. That is an 8-hour window where you need to be sharp, vigilant, and completely dialed into this exercise. There's no checking out, there's no losing focus. For those 8 straight hours, you are quite literally the eyes and ears of the exercise planning team.
Understanding the chronological buildup of this catastrophe is absolutely essential. The chaos kicks off pretty early, at exactly 0634 hours PDT, which, by the way, is 1334 hours UTC. The United States Geological Survey, the USGS, issues a shake alert message. And then, just seconds later, that massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake actually strikes. In the following minutes, the cascading failures start hitting. Like I mentioned, cell, text, and internet completely fail. So by the time our actual exercise window opens up at 9, the players have already been sitting in a catastrophic communications blackout for hours. They're going to be stressed, they're going to be improvising, and they'll be relying heavily on redundant emergency comms. Your job is to understand that they are reacting to an event that has already fundamentally altered their operational reality.
So in the midst of all this simulated chaos, your mission parameters are actually pretty clear-cut. Your job is to provide situational updates, moderate discussions, and resolve questions as required. But let me be very, very clear here. You are not a player. You're not there to fix the broken radios, you're not dispatching emergency services, and you are definitely not there to swoop in and save the day. Think of yourself as the invisible hand guiding the exercise. You're just keeping the simulation running smoothly. If a player hits a procedural roadblock that threatens to totally derail the learning objectives, that's when you step in, resolve the question, and get them right back on track. You are the referee, the guide, and honestly, the guardian of the exercise's integrity.
Now, I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You're hearing about this incredibly complex communication systems exercise, and you're starting to panic because you don't know the first thing about radio frequencies or satellite uplinks. Well, just take a breath. A controller is an exercise facilitator who is not required to be a subject matter expert or SME in a particular subject to succeed. It's true. If a highly technical issue pops up, we actually have key exercise planning team members waiting in the wings to assist with facilitation as SMEs. Your primary qualifications for this role are just having a sharp eye, a reliable watch, and the ability to really listen. We are not testing your technical prowess. We're relying entirely on your observational discipline.
All right, let's talk logistics. Where exactly are you going to be doing all this observing? Well, it depends entirely on your assigned task. You could be deployed to a few different potential locations. You might be stationed right in the nerve center itself, the Emergency Operations Center, or you could be out in the elements at a mobile communications unit, an MCU. You might just be stationed at your home agency or department, or, honestly, even participating from your home or residence if the simulation is testing remote continuity. Finally, you could be assigned out to a dedicated field observation post. The big takeaway here is adaptability.
Wherever you end up deployed, your core mission, observing, documenting, and moderating, stays exactly the same. The environment might change, but your standards definitely do not.
Okay, let's dive into your toolkit. When you deploy, you need to bring some specific gear, and you're going to notice it's heavily weighted toward the analog side of things. Why? Well, because we're simulating a massive digital failure. Let's run through your required controller field resources. A smartphone, but crucially, this is primarily just to take photos during the exercise, and you can only do that with permission. A radio to monitor traffic, sure, but only if it's available. It's not strictly required. Now, pay close attention to the last 3 items. A clock or watch, a notebook, and a writing pen or pencil. These are your absolute lifelines out there. When those simulated cell towers fall, your battery-powered watch and your paper notebook suddenly become your most important data collection tools. Yes, actual physical paper and pencil. I highly suggest you remember how to use them before deployment day because you absolutely cannot show up without them.
So how exactly are you going to be using that notebook? Well, your role splits into 2 very distinct collection methods: objective and subjective data. Let's look at the difference because it's incredibly important. On the objective side, you need hard, undeniable facts. We're talking about documenting the chronological tasks being performed using your clock or watch. For example, at exactly 0914, the radio operator initiated contact. At 0942, a secondary failure occurred. It's precise, right? Subjective data, on the other hand, requires you to use your senses to be an active listener and observer before, during, and after the exercise is concluded. How did the team react to the failure? Was there confusion in the room? Was the leadership clear? You really need to master both of these field observation techniques to capture not just the hard timelines, but the human elements of the response as well.
And that brings us to the absolute cardinal rule of your assignment. I really want to emphasize this contamination warning. When the exercise finally concludes, you're going to help facilitate the hot wash, which is just our term for the immediate post-exercise review. Your job here is to guide that discussion without injecting a single one of your own opinions, observations, or suggestions. Let me repeat that for the folks in the back. Do not inject your own opinions. Why? Because you want to avoid contamination of the player hot wash discussion. The players need to self-evaluate. They have to realize their own mistakes and their own victories. If you just jump right in and tell them what they did wrong, you completely rob them of that crucial learning moment. And honestly, you contaminate the data for the planning team. Remember, you're a mirror, reflecting their performance back to them, not a critic grading their paper.
So there it is. We've covered the scenario, the timeline, your specific duties, your toolkit, and the absolutely critical difference between objective facts and subjective observations. You are stepping into a scenario that literally simulates the darkest days of disaster response. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought as you prepare for your deployment. When the communications fail, when the simulated pressure rises, and when the players are pushed to their absolute limits, will your observations capture the absolute truth of the response? Your notes, your timelines, and your completely impartial moderation are the key to ensuring that if this disaster ever becomes real, our teams are going to be ready. Get your gear prepared, study those timelines, and I will see you in the field.